There's nothing more fun than making art with your friends. Today, we're doing just that. Hello friends, my name is Angela Bolaños. I'm a visual artist and a teaching artist at Perez Art Museum, Miami. And today I'm joined by my dear friend, local Miami artist, David Gary Lloyd. David Gary Lloyd's artwork explores contrasting elements between the natural and the human-made. He uses photography, digital painting, and mixed media to depict or reinterpret beauty in nature and artificial objects. David creates abstract reconstructions of iconic objects such as Crayola crayons or prints of the Mona Lisa. This gesture in process is a nod to the almost universal bond these well-known objects create between humans. David, thank you for coming and joining us in this art activity.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be back at the Perez Art Museum, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's actually how we met. We were both teaching artists here at the museum. And is there a special memory that you have from working here at the museum?
I have a lot of memories from being here at the museum, and a lot of them are coming back to me just being here today, but really like being around all these amazing contemporary artworks on a day-to-day basis and getting to discuss and talk about them with kids and the community in Miami is something that I really miss and I really loved about my experience here. And the people like you and I became really good friends after working here, and just it's a great place to meet a lot of other creators in the community.
It is. And considering that we work with children so much throughout the year, is there anything from your own childhood that really influences the way you make art?
Yeah, I mean, just going back into my mind, I guess like as a child is something that I actually do a lot when I make art, because I think as a child, we look at art materials and things in life differently than we do adults. And, you know, using kind of those memories as a kid to kind of view the world through, you know, a sense of play, a sense of seeing things and being fascinated by even just something small like a butterfly or a leaf and finding really beautiful details in those. I think getting to work with kids as, you know, we got to work together with on a day-to-day basis reminded me, you know, just how important that is for an artist, just to continue that sense of play and creativity.
What is your process like on a day-to-day when you are getting ready to start a new work of art?
Well, it depends on what my intention is in what I'm creating. A lot of my photography I shoot very often, so I just always have my camera with me in case I just feel inspired to shoot, you know, a fish in the water or something. And I like to kind of be more organic and raw about how I'm creating art, whereas I used to be very like meticulous about creating. And I think that just sometimes being inspired by the things that are around us is more important than just like trying to achieve one end result sometimes. So I think a lot of my artwork, like on a day-to-day, it depends how I feel that day. Sometimes if I'm angry and I'm upset, like I want to find something maybe out in nature or something that can represent that emotion, and I like seek that out.
Some of the pieces have their faces covered, especially your photography, which is what inspired this art activity that we're going to work on now. And I think that's really important, because sometimes when you're inspired by an artist, it may be the materials that they use, it may be whether it's a painting, you want to create a painting, or photography, you want to recreate a photography. But sometimes you can be inspired by a little detail or something that feels that you want to explore from that work of art. And that's what I wanted to do today. Because a lot of David's subjects have their faces covered, I thought that maybe we could work on making our very own masks. And with David, we're going to be working on that activity today and show you that result. Okay, let's get started. For me, I've already pre-cut my mask the shape to kind of resemble a face. It doesn't have to look exactly like a face. I think what I love about masks is that you can get really creative. I'm going to start by using my color pastels and just coloring the entire surface of the mask. What about you, David?
Cool. So I like things to look symmetrical a lot of times, and sometimes I get, like too caught up on like drawing something out specifically. So I'm actually gonna start by making almost like a pattern that is gonna be half of the side of the mask, and then I'm going to draw that onto the cardboard so it will create like some symmetry. So I'm just gonna start off by drawing part of my mask.
And I think that's really useful because if you're not used to drawing, you can make sure that you take your time creating the template, and then you feel a little bit more confident when you transfer it to the cardboard.
Right. I mean, I work in the computer a lot, and we have Control-Z to go back in the computer. But in drawing, I guess, I don't know, I don't have as much confidence in that. So for me, I like, to have a little bit more wiggle room. So
so I know that you work a lot on the computer.
I do, yeah.
But what are other materials that you use generally when you create your 2D works of art?
I like to use materials that people recognize. So
Okay.
I like to use crayons because I feel like everybody has some kind of connection with crayons. I like to kind of repurpose those materials. So I'll take like, something that's very recognizable, like a crayon, but I'll melt it down and then almost use it as like a paint on the canvas. Just like a way to kind of repurpose a material, or, like crayons, for example, I think people have a lot of memories associated with them from all over the world, no matter what your background is. I think a lot of people, that's like their first kind of, form of expression or creativity. I also like to use, pages from books of, famous paintings that I will, chop up into different pieces and then reassemble them differently to, have someone be able to look at one of my artworks and be like, I actually know what that material is. I think I already have like an idea about what that means to me.
So it's more familiar to whoever is looking at it.
Yeah.
Is there an artist that you are particularly influenced by, or somebody that you look up to or inspire your artwork?
I mean, I do. I have artists that I'm inspired by, that I enjoy, but to be completely honest with you, like whenever I hear that question, for me personally, I feel like I don't like to associate myself sometimes too much with like what other artists are doing, or to be inspired too much by them, because I like to just like create based off of what's in my mind, in my head. And I would say like I'm more inspired by like my friends and seeing, their interactions with me in my life, or nature. Like nature to me, I see as art. So for me, I almost feel like Earth itself is like, the artist in that way, and that it's providing us with all this inspiration everywhere. But like I have like one really good friend, his name's Michael Zimmerer, who's another photographer who I really love his work. It's really beautiful. And I think that's kind of where I get
I do notice that you have a lot of butterflies and trees, especially in your photography. And just looking in depth into your photography, as I mentioned earlier, I noticed that a lot of your subjects have their faces covered, which is what made me think of masks and creating masks.
I love
Can
that.
you tell me a little bit about why that is? Why a lot of the subjects in your photography have their faces covered?
I mean, to be honest, when you told me we were making masks, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like a cool like art activity that someone looked at my work and thought, oh, like masks, because like looking back at some of the work I was making, and I covered up a lot of faces. I started doing that, I think, around like 2012. And for me, it's like a way of like keeping people kind of anonymous, or feeling anonymous in a way, or or also like the way that we, you know, kind of wear like coverings or a facade or like a persona in a way, especially with social media. And, you know, I like to cover the faces to kind of create that sense of like wonder, like who is that person? Who are they really? And I feel like with social media, like there's already a lot of that kind of happening. Like we see all these things that are put out that people are, you know, creating these facades, and it's like, but who is that actual person? So I thought like mask making was just like such a clever, fun way to, you know, to talk about my work or to see those similarities in some of the things that I create. And who doesn't love a good mask?
Yeah, and I feel like masks are just one of those activities that most people enjoy making, and you can use such a variety of materials. Like what I'm doing right now, I just colored my mask with oil pastels, and now I want to add a little bit of dimension to the mask, because even though technically it is a 2D work of art, you can add elements that make it feel a little more sculptural. And I'm just using some Mod Podge, which is a really versatile type of glue, and I'm going to add some of my paper cutouts. My mask has more of a slightly geometrical feel to it, and I love using color anytime, so I'm definitely taking advantage of that and just filling up the entire surface with color. But I know that for you, you're not necessarily using a lot of color, but you are using other materials that are very interesting to me, like feathers.
You know, who doesn't love some feathers, you know?
Feathers.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm using some similar materials, but I like just like the look of this raw cardboard. I like to be able to actually see that it's like cardboard. And right now what I'm doing is, so I have my template that I made. And so basically it's like you just draw one that looks fine, and then you place it down, you trace it, and then you flip it to create the symmetrical side of it, which is gonna, you know, give our mask that kind of polished look to it. And yeah, and then I'll throw on some feathers. I'm feeling my bird vibes. I love owls, so I think, you know, I think an owl kind of represents me in a lot of ways. So when I think about a mask or maybe something that I can channel from like nature, I feel like maybe an owl would be that side of me. So that's what I'm kind of going with today. So I think like masks are a really fun way to get to like explore maybe like another side of ourselves. Like I'm curious to see like what everybody makes out there, if there's something that maybe inspires you like in nature, or you know, maybe there is like an artwork that you've seen that you think is really cool, represents you in a certain way. For me, I love animals, so animals inspire me a lot, or things in nature inspire me a lot. So I don't know, what inspires you, or what's inspiring your mask, Angela?
Well, I'm really inspired by faces. And I love, in this case, you're seeing that I'm making a more traditional face with a twist. But there's so many things that you can do. It doesn't have to look like what a regular face would look like. You can definitely play a lot with just whimsical elements maybe create something that has more of a cubist vibe. Maybe the nose can be at the bottom of the face. That's what I love about mask making, is that there really aren't any restrictions. You can let your imagination go. You can use any materials that you may want to use, and then you can create something that definitely is reflective more of your mind and your creativity rather than a particular aesthetic. That's why mask making is so exciting for me.
Yeah, and it's cool sometimes to just like, you know, not have like too much of a plan, just to like see like what comes out, like what materials you might have like laying, you know, at your house. Like we're just using cardboard, some pom-poms, feathers, something to color on the masks with. But I mean, you can use so many things. Like see like what's around your house. Like you might have like, you know, like some old like wrapping paper that you could use and repurpose, or, you know, just like something kind of like laying around, like, you know, in the kitchen. Or, you know,
you can even use tree branches, leaves that you may find outside.
Oh, yes.
I think that is what is so exciting about making art nowadays, is that you don't necessarily need materials that you purchase at the art store. Everything around you can become a work of art. I am at the very last step of my art making right now. I'm making this faces, my face on this small cutout cardboards. But what I'm doing is that rather than using the shapes that I think should go in every part of it, like where the eyes go, where the mouth go, maybe I'm gonna be a little more creative and use a completely different shape. I am gonna also use my Mod Podge to glue this this part of my creation, and then this is probably a mask that's more decorative. I'm gonna put it on my wall, so I'm also gonna add some yarn to it. What are you gonna do with your mask, David?
So, okay, so now like I have a few of my pieces cut out, and you know, you can like make, you know, as many kind of pieces as you want. I personally like when masks have like some like dimension, like layers to it. So cardboard works great just because you can really stack it and you can really see that it has like a lot of depth to it. So, you know, I'm just gonna kind of lay these out.
Yeah, I did something similar, but my layering is more creating texture with color. And more paper with the construction paper, and then just using the pom-poms as a decorative element.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw some feathers and pom-poms on mine. I just noticed too that, you know, your mask probably needs a place if you wanna kind of wear it over your face. Like you might wanna have a place for your nose to show through. So I kind of realized that I didn't quite make a place for my nose. So I'm just gonna now kind of draw over here and create a place for it to like sit on my nose. And this is kind of the cool thing too, is like once you kind of start to see it come together, you can then, you know, just see what it needs, what it doesn't need. And
yeah, you can make adjustments.
Make some adjustments to it, which is what I'm doing here. And if you know you're doing this activity with your kids, you know, they could draw out the stuff and you can help them cut some of maybe, you know, these more like stronger materials. That could be a option.
And I think you can also use thicker cardstock.
Yeah.
That's not cardboard.
Yeah, thick
and that may make it easier if you are doing a family project.
Yeah, definitely.
That may be more. That may be more used better for little ones.
Yeah. I love cardboard though, just because, I mean, with all of the packages that we're all getting from Amazon and everywhere now, I feel like we have so much cardboard everywhere. So I just feel like, yeah, cardboard, we know we have that around, right? All right, so I'm almost done with this part.
It's a great way to recycle.
A great way to recycle, yeah. All right, so this is my final mask. So I had a really great time getting to make this. This is one that I made earlier. It's a little bit more, I spent a little bit more time actually cutting the pieces out and with the patterns. So you can spend as much time as you would like to making these. How about you, Angela? How'd your mask come out?
This is my mask that I made earlier as well. And you can see that I also spent a lot more time creating it. I absolutely enjoyed making this art activity with you, David. Thank you, friends, for joining us and on this edition of Second Saturday at Paris Art Museum Miami. And of course, we want to see your work. Show your art to the world and use hashtag PAMMDIY so that we can see what you created inspired by the activities that we do in these videos.